Life, it's a work in progress. It's about moments, memories, people, connections. And every interaction that I do with people that matters to me motivates me and inspires me to be better and to continue progressing in this work of life. Conversations with extraordinary people about this beautiful journey called life. And you're going to find it here in the Visible Audio Podcast. It's not only me that is feeling this way, obviously a lot of people, but I can see it a lot. Even sometimes in my neighbors, if I go for a walk or something like that, it's almost like, we're supposed to social distance and maintain our distance, but that doesn't mean that we can say hello to each other. But I feel that has decreased as well. It's, like I said, I don't know if it's something that we're just wired this way of, I'd rather shut down than actually accept that because this is the only way that I know how to social distance from you.
Yeah, maybe. And or people are trying to find, even like we're doing right now, like a Zoom interview, like these replacement things, like we have replacement tools to relationships, and we're texting more, Zooming more, or, even classroom situations this way. And actually, and I'm not a researcher, so I'm just going to theoretically tie this back to the monkey study that I'll talk to you about right now. But the replacement is maybe fine and maybe will keep us alive, but it's not enough. It's not enough. So the monkey, so it's like the science of love is called, Harry Harlow was a researcher who wanted to study these styles of attachment and stuff like that we're talking about, and how I don't want to dive like too deep into it, but essentially like what happens to kids who are living in like group homes of like 100 kids and have one caregiver versus like being placed in a foster home that's like a family, etc. So it relates to all of that, but the monkey love experiment is called by Harry Harlow. Essentially, he had they took baby rhesus monkeys, these little tiny cute monkeys. They took them away from their moms at birth, like away from their birth moms, which is terrible within itself. But for the sake of science, this was the 1950s. Like they weren't worried about that part. But they take these babies away from their moms, and there were two fake monkey moms. So one fake monkey mom was like soft. They were made out of wire, but this mom had like terry cloth towels and was soft and warm. When the baby would kind of like mechanically move to like hold that baby. And this monkey mom had none of that, just wires. But she fed the baby. She would dispense milk. And these babies would gravitate towards this mom and not eat. They would choose the comfort and the softness and starve over this thing that will feed them. And so, which is really telling within itself. So if I'm thinking about like, even touch, like, could we relate that to now with those preschool teachers who are like, I would rather risk getting coronavirus from this 4-year-old's backpack than not hug them, Mm-hmm. And then the next piece of that he did was he had both mama monkeys, the wire monkey and the soft monkey, feed the babies. And so both would feed, and they studied the terms of that later, or like the outcomes of those monkeys later. And the monkeys who were fed off of like wire and stuff like that, they had all kinds of issues later on. So like their fear responses, like if something scared them, they would like curl into a ball and like not be able to cope. And so you can think about like living in survival is not just eating, or living in survival is not just Zoom. Like we are wired to be touched and cuddled and snug.
So how interesting is that? Because if you think about it, I think that there has been these presets that we have been exposed to over and over again that tell us, that there's these basic needs that we need to cover. And mainly it's, when you think about this study, you will think that, yes, food. I mean, how can they not instinctively think that food is a primary need? And but yes, I mean, it is just so important, and you're touching a lot of things that I think are very, very important for especially our audience to kind of deep in and understand.
And if you're thinking about like the basis of like what's happening right now with fear for children who are maybe scared of people in mass, but even for us as adults, back to those monkeys, I told you about the fear response from the babies who were fed by the wire moms. They couldn't cope. They could not handle it. They were so stressed out, like going crazy or curling in a ball. But the babies who were fed by the soft mom, when they were in fearful situations, what they did was they retreated back to the mom. Like, or the fake monkey, the soft mom. And so you can even think about those two things that we're wired for related to now, like these times of stress, like if we have a healthy relationship and it's available to us, like we are going to retreat to comfort and physical touch from another human being. And what if we can't do that? Because it's not safe to do. And so you're right. Like we feel it culturally and we feel it like on a friend level, like I wish I could hug you, but it's worth consideration that is deeper and it's wired in us to be suffering right now from the lack of touch. Also, I do have a quick edit real quick. I want to just verify what I was saying here.
Yeah.
Both moms did dispense milk, but even though this mom fed the baby, they would always go to this mom. Quick little edit there. They chose always the soft, cuddly mom. So.
Well,
sorry, just a quick edit in case there's like fellow researchers or
researching what is this lady telling us.
But I do encourage like anybody to really look up the Harry Harlow monkey love experiment, and recognizing that it's sad that the monkeys were taken from their moms, but it's a really interesting
study.
Thing.
Yeah. That sounds like it. And I think that when you were talking about touch in that level, I almost feel that you have touched a lot of different areas, for lack of a better word, touched a lot of different areas. But because I can see how, we're not only talking about, the superficial level of touching that, oh, I miss, hugging my friend, I miss doing this. But what I want to, clarify and actually emphasize to our audience is that, by opening to this topic, we have discovered how much touch is it's linked to attachment, and it's linked to our current events of media too. I mean, how much we rely on, how much more we want to spend time on electronics than actually with our family and with our, but I feel that it's also linked to stress. I mean, I think that you have mentioned that, and especially on the study with the monkeys, when they feel that distress, what they resource to. And so it might sound like a very superficial topic, but I don't think it is. We're just trying to dig into making you realize that there's so many things important in our lives that are attached to it so deeply, and that impacts us so much. And I want to mention this because I mentioned in the very beginning of the episode that there was something that me personally that made me think also about touch, aside of the story that I explained about the doctor. So I'm just going to be very brief with it because in my head I'm playing in different scenarios, but but I do remember, and this hasn't been recent, but it made me think about this. So I remember when there was, when my firstborn was little, and we start handling the wonderful 2-year-old tantrums. They're so lovely. They're more like 4-year-old tantrums. I don't know what they say. 3 and 4 are like, oh,
Yeah.
they're hard.
The terrible twos are not always as terrible as the difficult 3 and 4.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. So she might have been about that age, 3 or 4 years old. So I remember that, there was some tension because of something that she couldn't do. She couldn't something. And so what I remember the most is trying something different, because there was, she's very in touch with her feelings, which I love about her. But there is times where those feelings can extend to a very, much farther than they should, and get into that deep emotional ball that, all of us probably have experienced at one point of our lives. But for a piece of Lego, it's not worth it. But for a 3 or 4-year-old, probably is. Anyways, the point of this is that we were trying different things. And at the end, I actually was my instinct almost to just not say anything and hug her.
Yeah.
And just not say a word, just hug her. And she was like, all restless at the beginning, but eventually kind of, she understood the touch, I think. And she hugged me back.
Yep.
And she just kept crying and crying and crying. And I, it was so hard for me to bite my tongue and not say anything at all, but let her understand that I was there for her. And I understood that this was a struggle for her. And ever since, every so often, I did realize that the tantrum went a lot shorter, depending on what it was. But it went a lot shorter by doing that and having that touch than actually trying to explain to her while she was angry why this was wrong, or try to, give her a lesson at that point. Because once I was able to do that and calm her down, I was able to have a conversation with her. And that's what also prompted me to think, how much stress can be related to the touch. From my personal experience, like I said, I'm not an expert or anything, but my personal experience have given me that opportunity to learn that touch can be huge at times of distress. And well, hello, what a bigger time of distress that the world is living in than right now.
Yes.
These, unfortunate, very, horrible of times that we are all experiencing in some way, even if he hasn't touched us at this point directly, we are living it.
Yeah.
So,
and your lived experience, even though you maybe not be a professional expert, you are a human expert, because it aligns with the professional science that goes behind it. And you can think about even like weighted blankets are super popular, or like thunder coats for dogs. These, it works. It really does work to resets you. And so we think of, I talked about reset and skin to skin. Like if your baby is crying, that's a really good way to calm them, relieve pain, so regulate them enough to figure out what else is maybe going on. Or maybe that's all that's going on. They just needed to be regulated. But even up to adults, I mean, I have a weighted blanket. I love my weighted blanket. It's the best thing ever. Like, I love to feel that pressure, and I really do think it helps me sleep.
I think everybody needs one.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best. What you did is actually a very popular, positive discipline technique, which is kind of says, and this doesn't work for every kid. I mean, definitely some 3, 4, 5-year-olds need other things, but a lot of children respond really well to that time in theory, which is I'm checking back in with you. I'm here with you. We're together. I'm gonna hold you to kind of help regulate your body components here, and act as a reset, just like skin to skin, to then address whatever was going on. And it's very popular. And I think it really works for a lot of kids and a lot of parents, because like you said, it aligns more with your instinct. Your
Mm-hmm.
instinct, maybe sometimes, but it's not always to put them in a room and let them cry until they figure it out, you know? I mean, and I will say sometimes that is needed for the parent to regulate before they can go in and process it better. But I think a lot of times, you know, like parents have that instinct to connect rather than disconnect.
Yeah, and I know it is hard because as parents we want to teach and we want to make sure that they understand um especially with their feelings to how to value that and use that in a good way. And of course it is also, you know, needless to say, annoying. The
Yeah.
cry of a kid, it is annoying. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just, you know, yeah, when they start, yes, uncomfortably cry, or especially when you know that it's for maybe for you as an adult something so insignificant
Right.
as a toy or as a little thing that for them is their whole world.
Yeah.
But we never go when we are in that time that we're trying to handle the situation, don't have the time to go into that mode of, you know, think about how important this thing is for that person, blah, blah, blah. And like you said, it doesn't work for every kid either. It's almost like you have to know your own child to know what
Or
to do.
you said it, like, and not every time, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not perfect for every time, but trusting your instincts to know, like, this is what this child needs, and I'm going to trust my gut here and say this needs this rather than this.
Right. I think that's the main thing. But you know, and I always think, like, what about adults? I think that you said it with the blanket, because I do want to say that that's an, you know, I know that a lot of people are like, wait, blankets, why, you know?
Oh,
It is great. And I don't have one, but one day, my one of my really good friends actually made it. It's not a weight blanket technically, but it's a blanket that is very, very heavy. And my kids have slept wonderfully with it. And I stole it once because there was not another blanket, and I wanted to try it out. And I slept wonderfully.
Yeah.
And ever since, if I have you know, a night that is
Yeah.
not great, I actually use it. But
Yeah.
it's really good. But I feel that that's our instinct, right? That's what we kind of feel as a baby, and being protected and being whole. I'm sorry, being held, and you know, all that. You know, we want to experience that when we're at times of distress. Now that we're adults, you know, you have heard of it, that how common it is for adults to retrieve and go back to childhood-like stages when you are in moments of distress. And so and I don't think it's new to many people. I'm sure that you guys have heard of it. But you know, me as an adult, I'm thinking also on, you know, when I'm at a stress, you know, what is the first thing that I do? And almost it's like almost crawling on a ball with your own self, because you want to be on that almost fetal, you know, position, and because that brings you back to maybe good feelings and good insights. I don't know, but or you know, whatever have make you feel comfortable and great in life. But I think that's a very common for everybody. It's, you know, and I'm talking about, you know, not stressed out about what I'm going to cook tonight, but
No,
stressed out like, a very,
the world is ending.
Exactly, a very harsh event in your life, you know, that you may be going through or have gone through, or something like that, that you know, you feel like you need that comfort. But you know, and in all, I think that touch is just so important at the physical level, but also thinking about how is influencing and feeling our life, our daily life. And I do feel so, especially after that story that I explained at the beginning, I feel more empathy. That's it. So I feel more empathetic with the people at the front line right now that are going through different things. I know that they are probably built with a much tougher skin than I will ever be able to, but but all the little things that we don't know that they're going through right now, to be able to take care of somebody else, the exhaustion and the mental and emotional effort that they have to put, not counting only the physical. That's very admirable. And I know that we have said, and people have recognized, these doctors, nurses, first responders, police, anybody that is at the front line right now trying to help out, the National Guards. I mean, a lot of people behind the scenes that are not maybe being seen and being recognized, but they are also, exploring all the things that we're feeling right now in a higher level.
Yeah.
In a much higher level.
At the beginning of coronavirus, I mean, it hasn't happened as much, which I'm assuming is because if they quarantined all the first responders who got exposed, we would have no more first responders because the rate is so high right now. But in the beginning, when the numbers locally here in Cochise County were still low, a couple of the fire departments who, run medical services were, if a firefighter was exposed or a paramedic was exposed, they would quarantine them for the 14 days and before they could come back to work. And my husband, who works, that's how I know this, he works for the fire department. We were talking about this because there were a couple of people that his colleagues and people that we know who got quarantined who had really young children, and just the challenges of that for both, for a 1-year-old that's like, Dad, and like doesn't understand why they can't run to their dad who's staying in a camper out back, but also for the dad who's like, I want to hold my baby, and feeling that aloneness, and so it's very real. It's a very real thing for them. And I think now they're not quarantined, but it's very like, you can't come home and just swoop up your kid and be like, hi baby. It's come home, take off your boots, throw your clothes in the wash your hands, take a shower, sanitize, then hold your baby, which is just, even if you still get to hold your baby, it's that disconnect.
Right.
So.
It is, because almost it's something that I'm sure a lot of people were looking forward to do as well. I mean, it's probably their, it was probably for them their time of tranquility and peacefulness and going home. And so for many people that has been kind of broken or rearranged. Right. And I know that's hard to get used to. And I know that there's going to be, a different transition as well, when we gotta get out of this mode of, being, united again, and not so much relying on maybe, Zoom to communicate to people. Although I have to say that, there's, I don't want to be all negative on it, because I think that there has been a lot of really good, in my experience, really good things with technology. I mean, I'm so thankful for it, because I have connection with people that I, at this point I can't physically. So it has allowed me to reconnect to all those other people. So I'm very grateful for technology for that matter. But I hope that we do that transition knowing and understanding that, once we have that ability to be reunited with people, that that we do it, and we just don't rely on, oh well, I can see you on the computer, or I can do this. That's, I don't know how that's gonna play or when that's gonna happen, but
I mean, and I think we're kind of even just wrapping up here, like the end note, the takeaway obviously is like how important it is, and recognizing, at least for me, recognizing that people are suffering right now, and it's not just worrying about how you're going to pay your bills, or worrying about getting coronavirus, or worrying about your kids going back to school. It's truly the lack of physical touch, and physical being with somebody. We should do a whole nother podcast on like facial expressions and connection via Zoom, and how that has changed too. And like masks, like not being able to read people's cues. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. But physical touch is, so recognizing that people are suffering, and that's one of the layers why But two, I think there is the positives. And so I think about like you right now, like if we were doing this somewhere else or at work or something, or, you know, we had a work meeting together, your girls aren't a part of it. They're not, you know, even if it's a challenge sometimes to like be home and with them all the time, and for any parent out there to be home all day with your kids, the benefit of that is your kids are getting a lot of attention and touch, and you have an opportunity to have physical, when you want it, when, you know, if you're like, come here and squeeze me, like they're just right there. And again, I go back to like those babies who are being born right now. Parents might be getting more maternity leave or paternity leave that they would never have gotten in other situations if it weren't for this. So I think that's the benefit. And then also recognizing or acknowledging going forward, like the gratitude for physical touch when things do open back up, like how maybe more intentional we'll be about hugging and being near somebody, or, you know, like touching their hand or whatever. I mean, however that might be with a friend. And one other like positive thing that I've seen just in the news, I don't know like if this is factual or not, but is like the dog rescue, animal rescue has gone up during this time because people are just home. But that's also a huge, it's a huge physical touch thing. Like you might not be able to physically touch other humans, but if you're alone, or, you know, somebody that is alone and isn't isolated with your family, or you are even with your family, get a dog, go rescue a dog, because they're the best physical touch, snuggly little things. So I think that there's things that we can do now to make up for that physical touch. And, you know, you've probably seen some of those things on the news where people like put up a plastic sheet with like holes and gloves so that people can still hug. So you can get creative and
whatever works. Whatever works.
Get a dog, get a weighted blanket, get a plastic sheet and hug people through it. And then when everything opens, hug more. Yeah,
I've seen that. And actually I thought that was such a neat idea, but I think it's coming out of the creativity and the desperation of people to do that. I think that whatever these next months lead us to, I think that people are going to find somehow a way to be in touch with somebody else, whether it's physical, whether it's, you know, visual. What I do hope is that maybe in the future, this also podcast could be how it was meant to be, you know, together with friends in the same room and kind of have that connection as well. But for now, I think that this is also a wonderful alternative. And like I said, that's why I'm so grateful about technology, because it has allowed me to do this anyways. In regards of touch, my last thought is that remember how important it is if you're a new mom to be, or you are a new mom right now. It is so, so important, as Rhegan has mentioned it over and over again. And that also, if you are with your loved ones, that you are very blessed, and that if you are not, that this moment will pass.
And get a dog.
And get a dog. And get a weight blanket. And get all those good stuff. But there's other alternatives. But so hopefully you understand how important is touch, and how important this topic is. And I hope that it opened your eyes to think a little bit farther. So Rhegan, thank you again one more time. These conversations are so nice and leave me just with such a inspirational vibe. So I always enjoy talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always fun to talk to you. And you. It's always fun to talk to all of you.
You too. As always, I ask you to keep the conversation going, and I'll see you in the next one.